June 1942. The Pacific Ocean was filled with tension. Only 6 months had passed since the Japanese Air Force bombed Pearl Harbor, disabling most of the American fleet's capital ships. Now, having assembled a powerful strike force, their 4 finest aircraft carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, the pride of the Imperial Navy under the command of Admiral Yamamoto, Japan intended to deliver a decisive blow. Their target was the tiny but strategically vital Midway Atoll, a coral fortress the Japanese referred to as AF. By capturing it, they hoped to establish a forward base from which to threaten Hawaii and lure out and destroy what they feared most: the American aircraft carriers that had escaped destruction at Pearl Harbor. For Tokyo, it was a masterstroke meant to bring America to its knees. For Washington, it was a battle that could not be lost. The price of defeat could be nothing less than losing the entire Pacific War. However, the Americans held a carefully guarded trump card. In the basement of a building in Hawaii known as Station HYPO, a team of brilliant cryptographers led by Commander Joseph Rockefort had spent months working to crack the Japanese naval code JN-25. It was a monumental task, but one that finally paid off. The Americans weren't merely intercepting Japanese radio traffic. They were reading it. They knew a major operation was coming. By sending a clever false message about a water shortage at Midway, which the Japanese confirmed as AF in one of their encrypted transmissions, the Americans gained absolute certainty. Now, Admiral Chester Nimitz, Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet, possessed the invaluable gift of foresight. He knew the enemy's objective, approximate timing, and the composition of their forces. Nimitz acted with the cold precision of a chess grandmaster. He gathered all available assets: the aircraft carriers Enterprise and Hornet under Admiral Raymond Spruance, and the Yorktown, which had been badly damaged in the Battle of the Coral Sea just days earlier. The shipyards at Pearl Harbor accomplished the impossible, repairing Yorktown in 72 hours instead of the usual 90 days. This fragile trio was about to face Admiral Nagumo's seemingly invincible strike force, the Kido Butai. American pilots were inexperienced compared to the seasoned Japanese aviators, many of whom had been fighting for years in China. But the Americans were determined and hungry for payback. Early in the morning of June 4, 1942, the first wave of Japanese aircraft rose from the decks of their carriers, slicing through the damp dawn air. Dive bombers, torpedo bombers, and swarms of Zero fighters bore down on the airfield at Midway. An American radar station detected the approaching armada in time. The alarm sounded across the island. One after another, American aircraft took off from Midway and from Spruance's carriers, which had taken position northeast of the atoll. A deadly aerial dance began over the vast Pacific. The next hours were a bloodbath for the Americans. The first waves of bombers from Midway and the torpedo bombers from the carriers, flying outdated and slow aircraft, were cut down by Zero fighters and anti-aircraft fire. The Japanese air defense seemed impenetrable. The fate of the TBD Devastator torpedo squadron from the Hornet was especially tragic. They attacked without fighter cover, flying low and slow. One after another, like clay pigeons, they burst into flames and fell into the sea. Of 30 aircraft and 60 men, only one pilot survived. It wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. Yet in this seemingly hopeless moment, a miracle occurred. While Japanese fighters were busy hunting the torpedo squadrons at sea level, the flight decks of the Japanese carriers were in turmoil. Admiral Nagumo, overwhelmed by conflicting reports, hesitated. The decks of his carriers were crowded with aircraft being refueled and rearmed for a second strike. It was the worst possible moment for chaos. His floating airfields had effectively become enormous bombs packed with fuel and ammunition. And then, from several thousand meters above, death arrived. SBD Dauntless dive bombers from the Enterprise in Yorktown, led by Commanders McCluskey and Leslie, had spent precious time searching for the enemy. Spotting a lone Japanese destroyer racing north at full speed, they correctly deduced that it was hurrying to rejoin its fleet. They followed and found the carriers. Approaching from the sunlit side, The Dauntless peeled into their steep dives. To the Japanese sailors below, the whistling bombs were the sound of inevitable doom. The next 5 minutes entered history as the miracle at Midway. A single bomb hit the Akagi, but it detonated among refueled and rearmed aircraft. A chain reaction erupted instantly. The same fate befell Kaga and Soryu. The pride of the Imperial Navy became towering infernos. Black smoke rose hundreds of meters into the sky. Through the roaring flames came the screams of men and the explosions of ammunition lockers. The fourth carrier, Hiryu, escaped the initial attack and struck back fiercely. 2 waves of its aircraft found the Yorktown, inflicting devastating damage. The ship lost power, then stability. Her captain ordered the crew to abandon ship. But the Americans had already located Hiryu. By evening, another group of Dauntless found her and sent her to the bottom. When the smoke finally cleared over the endless Pacific, the scale of Japan's defeat became undeniable. They had lost 4 frontline aircraft carriers, the heavy cruiser Mikuma, and, perhaps most devastatingly, over 200 of their most experienced, irreplaceable pilots. America lost the Yorktown, the destroyer Hammond, about 150 aircraft and 307 men. These were painful tactical losses, but the strategic victory was absolute. The Battle of Midway was not merely a naval engagement. It became a turning point, a watershed in the Pacific War. From that day on, strategic initiative passed firmly to the United States. The Japanese fleet, stripped of its striking power and its elite naval aviators, would never again launch a major offensive. It was a victory forged from courage, intelligence breakthroughs, competent leadership, and improbable, almost mystical luck. A victory that reshaped the course of the war and saved the future of the free world, proving that even in the darkest hour, fate can be reversed by a single, decisive battle.